We're live.
Okay, we're live. This is the Senate Education Committee on the afternoon of April 9th. We are, among other things today, continuing our work on our budget letter. And we have want to get some, I guess, the full range of testimony on the Higher Education Trust Fund proposal. And I think everybody knows that it has, well, actually, you know what, I actually want you to just confidential from PRESAC, but maybe Tom, I'm not sure if I have to do this or not, but give us a little history while you're at it of how the fund was created and its initial.
Thank you, guys. For the record, it's Tom Little from Vermont Student Assistance Corporation here as a chair and syndicator. The purpose of the testimony and what the committee is working on. The Higher Education Endowment Trust Fund was established in 1999. And it's been amended a number of times. Some of those amendments relate to a governance committee. Sometimes it's called something else, but when one of the fundamental parts of the endowment fund is that it distributes a fixed percentage of its fund balance every year, but it could never distribute it, take it below the total amount of contributions that were put into the fund. So it can't go underwater. So there have been years where nothing was distributed and other years when less than 5% was distributed. That was intended to make it sustainable and grow over time in years where it generates more than 5%. The three recipients of PSEC, University of Vermont State College system, get 5%. There's also a supplemental distribution that can happen if, again, it doesn't take it below that cumulative amount of principal to UVM and the colleges, but not to PSEC, provided they do a 2 or 3 to 1 match of that from funds they have raised. And that's, again, for more scholarship. The consistent theme is that this is for grants and scholarships for students with financial need. So that, and back to the governance piece, when the state treasurer does their report, usually in August-ish every year after they've seen what the June 30th numbers look like, the treasurer's office does a calculation and sees what's available, if anything, but presents that to sometimes it was called a council of stakeholders, which included the state, member of the House, a member of the Senate, the institutions involved, and I think there was also somebody from the Vermont Business Roundtable, and they sort of said, "Yes, we agree with you, Treasurer. That's we agree with the numbers, and it's sufficient earnings to make the distributions." And in some years, if the treasurer said, I don't think this is a good year to do that, they sort of reached a consensus that it's probably a good idea. That governance entity used to be originally the Council on Higher Education Funding, called it CHEF. And I can, if you're interested, I can tell you about the origins of that. That morphed into what became the pre-K through 16 Council, which had other statutory responsibilities, but it was also this little body that met basically once a year when the treasurer issued the treasurer's report. And you have a copy of the most recent report of the treasurer to that council. The reason for the number of amendments to the statute to 16 VSA 2885 is that part of it has been tweaked, but the fundamentals of the 5% distribution to those three institutions and then supplemental to two of them if they match it has been pretty much unchanged. This came out of a period when there had been a lot of, from the legislature's perspective, a lot of very competitive advocacy for appropriations by the institutions. It wearied some of the legislators and the administration. And they created the Council on Higher Education Funding as a way to create some structure to help alleviate that problem, address it, and achieve some collaborative culture. The Secretary of Administration worked on it. The chairs of the two appropriations committees, the presidents of all the institutions were on it. And the statute said you can't send a designee, so it's got to be you. And that worked quite well to calm things down and get people to work more collaboratively. And out of that, period came to the Higher Education Trust Fund, which was say, you have such a hard time, it's so difficult to get appropriations when times are tough. If we create this permanent trust fund that can distribute money in most years, that'll be, it's sending a signal that that's a better way of doing business. So that's been the way it's gone. There's in the treasurer's report from last October, there's a chart that, among others, is more than a chart that tells you which years there were distributions and which years there weren't. And last year, I think, as we know, there was a unusually large one, but in the 3 prior years, there wasn't any distribution. Very, very small distribution. And the treasurer's report's got a lot of useful information. Some of it relates to how the treasurer manages the investing of the fund and measured its own performance and the performance of who's doing the investing. It also includes contributions from the institutions about what they're doing with their share of the funds, the number of awards, the number of students, where the money is going, the types of programs it's being used in, demographic percentages, things like that. It's a good, newsy, helpful report. And I should also add that there have been 2 or 3 years that I can recall where one way or another, the General Assembly, perhaps with the assistance of Treasurer's Office, or more likely the Department of Taxes, got wind of a impending large estate tax payment coming in, and the Appropriations Committee used notwithstanding language, and those revenues did not go into the fund in those years. So the fund would have been larger, probably by $15 to $20 million, if that had not happened. But that was an effective mechanism in the appropriations process in those years to figure out where to spend the money, the priorities. That's, you know. So that's some of the history. In the ensuing years, I think the institutions have worked fairly well most of the time to help boost appropriations to all three of them. They've been doing a lot of collaboration in other ways. BSAC and the university, for example, through its AHEC program. We collaborate on that. As you know, there have been a small flurry of forgivable loan programs targeted to specific professions and trades over the last half dozen years. That involves collaboration among the institutions. The money that flows out of the endowment trust fund to the Vermont State College system, a portion of that historically has gone to the Community College of Vermont. And one of those programs, BSAC and the CCV, there's a matching thing going on that kind of combines in a dynamic way that money and that, if you give me my reference to a recent email, in FY25, the state college system spent $160,000 as a match to BSAC awards for students attending CCV and Vermont State University. The rest of the state college system money was split in some way. I don't have that detail between Vermont State University supporting last dollar tuition needs for nursing students and to CCV for cohorts of certain cohorts of students. So all of that has led me and led BSAC to caution that any change to that structure, to the flow of the distributions of that should be done very carefully and cautiously after taking good testimony from all of the stakeholders. I add that the proposal the committee heard from the Ford Foundation on earlier in the week would reduce the dollars going to BSAC and to the University of Vermont, and maybe not in a huge material way, but the fact of the matter is the size of the sort of unanticipated infusion last year into the fund caught everybody's attention, as you would expect that it would. And people started thinking, what could we do with that? And I don't think this has never been a high profile program. And people are learning more about it, which is a healthy thing for them to learn. Our current view is that the fund works well. It's served Vermont students well, and we should let it continue to do that in the way it's done that, and be careful about making changes to it. We all know that there's another proposal that's sort of floating out there that hasn't been brought to this committee yet that would also have a fairly, maybe it's argue it's a fairly radical proposal, but it's for higher education purposes overall, but it's not for the students. And BSAC's mission and theme and all of that is for students, give them as many choices they have to decide where they want to take their education and their training, and to fund them and support them in collaboration with the other institutions. And we're also collaborating, with the independent colleges in Vermont in many of the same ways. So, Chair, I'll stop there. One more thing. BSAC did make a presentation to you all in the end of January about sort of our annual update to the committee, which included the budget ask. That's essentially the same proposal that we made later in the session to the Appropriations Committee, with one change. There was, I think it's the Nurse Forgivable Loan Program is now proposed to be funded from the Rural Health Transformation Program workforce. And in our slides, I kept it brief. The thing that maybe the most significant ask that BSAC has this year, in addition to its 3% base increase, is an increase, an $800,000 increase to the Vermont Freedom and Unity Scholarship, which is designed to currently we are able to provide free tuition to students enrolled in the Vermont State College system outside of CCB for students from households with incomes up to a certain level. And if we get the ask that we're requesting, we could take that to $80,000 household income. Currently, CCB percentage is $100,000. So any Vermont student going to CCB from a household with up to $100,000 gets free tuition now. Plus, those students are also eligible for other aid from BSAC and other sources as well. I'll stop there and be happy to take questions. And if there's some things that I can't answer, we'll get you the answers.
So this is for individual students, not necessarily for post-secondary.
Yeah. There are other, I think we provide, statute gives us some authority for grants for medical students, and it used to be veterinary students who could go to University of Maine. I don't know if they still have a vet school. They did have a collaboration with them.
Which money's in the fund right now?
Roughly 60 some million. It's in the treasurer's report. It's less than it was, well, we can say less than it was 2 months ago, but Lord knows what it is today.
And just,
For example, the treasurer's report from this past year said the total principal contributions through last June was $59,800,000. The fund balance then was $65,700,000. So there's a $5.8 million spread there that could be used under the statute for either the 5% or the 5 plus 2%.
Yeah, and so it's 5% of the up to 5% of the total, as long as
So the fund balance,
as long as it doesn't dip into gold.
that's correct. The decision was made, oftentimes endowments or trusts were written to say the income only goes to the purpose, goes to the beneficiaries. And over the years, people learned that it was not easy always to say, what do you mean by income? Is that interest? Is it dividends? Is it appreciation? If capital gain? And they've tended now to go to just a percent that's usually set at a point less than they hope to make every year in terms of growth, but still significant to help the beneficiaries so that the fund over time grows. That's how endowments get healthier.
And in this case, though, okay, it's again, it's up to 5% as long as it doesn't get any close. Okay.
For the base distribution to UVM, the Vermont State Colleges and VSEC, and then there is this 2% supplemental that has to be matched by those institutions. And if it doesn't bring it down below that principal amount, that gets distributed over to you as well.
So this becomes a policy discussion here for the committee about that. So the question I want everybody who comes up to, which if we the question is what are two choices if there's something you wonder if it's two choices and adding the fourth or keeping it to three, which will serve the most students most in need?
I'm not sure if there's a metric for that. I think each of the institutions has its different methodology and practices to achieve those goals. They all think they are doing that now. And if you had to line up the student recipients of the awards and measure their financial need, I think maybe that could be done, but you'd want to talk to somebody other than me about that. There's always need for more assistance, and Scott Giles came in and talked to you earlier in the year. There's changes in the federal student loan program now that are causing a lot of some disruption in that end of financial aid, and that's more so for graduate students, but also for undergraduates. The parent loan program is being squeezed pretty hard by the federal government.
Yeah, that question is way too complicated. The answer is way too complicated. It's very complicated. Yes.
So why don't you really want to see somebody else getting a piece of the pie? Because it opens, as I see it, it opens up more opportunities to individuals that might not realize they could have had that chance because they're so used to dealing, or are they more comfortable with one outfit over the other? So okay,
that's a fair question. I think that right now it's the Vermont State College system leadership and board that decides how much of that 1/3 share goes to CCV students, and by that that they have their process and priorities and goals. So they are doing that and making some judgments about that. It's a limited pot, so if some of it shifts that way, less is going to financially needy students at UVM, and less is going to the VSAC pool of students who might be going elsewhere to college. So I think, it's not a zero. It's a limited amount of money, Senator, and I think we just want the committee to be thorough about and analyzing this, because we don't like this to become a slippery slope and have other people coming in and asking to do the same thing. I don't know often how much dollar amount of this Vermont State College system 1/3 is going to CCVs now. I think that's they know, and they can testify on that.
And I thought Nusskin quite said two things, just to make sure the city understands this. This gets funded through sort of the state tax. The state comes in and it's over a certain amount.
Correct. the statute says that, it looks to the census state revenue estimate that the emergency board approves every 6 months. And that includes a consensus estimate for the revenue from the Vermont state tax. And it says that if that actual revenue comes in at more than 125% of the estimate, that's what it is. More than 125%, then the overage goes into this endowment fund. So as you saw from the chart, in some years there is no money, and it's a caution that we want to benefit the recipients. The three institutions have to be mindful, not using that in a way that might not work very well for students. If there's two years in a row, for example, where none of it's coming, so they have to, that's to be balanced. I'm sure that the treasurer or the deputy secretary come in and tell you more about how they invest the money so that they achieve enough to get over 5% on an ongoing basis, and what that risk are. And it's like a lot of long-term investment accounts, whether it's your retirement accounts or an endowment for scholarships. You're playing the long game, and you want investments that are going to perform well over 30 plus years, and not just things that are able to be liquidated this year.
And just, you touched on this, just to make sure that committee has this in there, the 65 million, whatever that's in there at this point, is the pot from which, I think combination of the governor and VVN is seeking to get the $50 million.
15 million, correct.
For the new facility.
Right.
And
I don't.
yes, I forgot.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Russian had a question.
Question, probably for the chair. I might be missing a connection here, but we haven't heard CCV themselves, right? We heard from the Clear Foundation. Recommending the change.
CCV is part of, we trying to get open. Whether we're going to be able to get them in before Friday. But CCV is part of the state college system, so the way it's for the state college.
So what are we proposing there? The
Well,
change? The
We're,
language?
this is why we're here. The language that's been proposed by the Poor Foundation is going to come up next and get a rating bill. Is to move from 3 recipients 4, which would, the 4th now would be the CCV, and which is actually on one level technically part of the Vermont State College. Right. There's but I won't get into that. So,
No, I
so
get
that's,
that.
that's the,
I just wasn't sure if we had heard
Yeah.
CCV or not.
no, you will affect in a way effectively through the Poor Foundation.
So what is the connection between the McClure Foundation and CCV? That's
Well, okay. What I, thank you.
Okay, one comment, wearing my former hat as a legislator, draft secretary, is that the statutory amendment that the McClure Foundation would is to a portion of section 2885. There are other places in 2885 that would need to be amended to have that flow through the way I think would be intended. I also think, Chair and members, the information here from the Vermont State Colleges from its perspective, which I think at times is a different perspective.
We're working on that.
Yeah.
So,
And you know how to find me if you want to hear more.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah, so thank you. That's very helpful.
Still have questions?
Well,
Next.
Yes, most will ask. That's why. So she can, I'm gonna. So,
Glad you're in.
Tom, are you gonna stick around?
I am.
Um,
So,
so for the record,
For the record, Rebecca Covans, Fleur Foundation. I could answer directly that or how?
yeah, we can do a little bit of a reset, because I will admit that when we first heard the testimony, I wasn't really focused on the complexity, the potential complexity of the request. And until it got clarified for me anyway, and so I want you to step back, remind us why you're making this, what the basis is, what the rationale is, why I think it makes sense, etc. And you can work that into Senator Hashim's question before or after.
Okay. So I appreciate being invited back. And what we're asking is essentially that the higher trust fund statute reflect by name the places that Vermonters go at scale for to seek post-secondary education. The reason this is timely is because of the institutional consolidation at Vermont State Colleges. So now it's just 2 institutions, it's Vermont State University and CCD, where it used to be 5 institutions. And this is also really relevant to the places, to the conversations, this session where how would we make career training more available to Vermonters? And I just want to reiterate briefly our position and then you can ask any questions. So we've been advocating for this modernization statute for a long time because it's really tied to where Vermonters are going for their career training and post-secondary education. To share some really high level numbers from 2024 as it relates to the incoming class, of undergraduate degree seeking students, Vermont State University served approximately double the number of Vermonters than UVM. At CCD, which is our state access institution, they serve the greatest number of low-income Vermonters, and over 14,000 Vermonters enrolled in a CCD class in 2025. I just want to sit with that for a second, because that is a profound number for our workforce training and education. Simply put, by any measure, and by a significant majority, Vermonters are being served at CCD and VTSU. Career-connected post-secondary education, particularly at our post-secondary, at our public institutions, drives economic mobility. And that is at the crux of where the Fleur Foundation really focuses our work. How do we promote career-connected learning so more Vermonters can reach those most promising jobs? And it's good for Vermont, it's good for Vermonters, it's really good for everyone. So the problem statement is really clear. Too few Vermonters are pursuing the post-secondary credentials needed to access these promising jobs and sustain Vermont's economy. And a clear public policy strategy is what is needed to change that condition, which is why we believe the statute should be modernized to reflect CCD and VTSU by name, because that's where students are going. The higher trust fund is just one piece of that puzzle, but something we can point to right now, today, in the complexity of all of the conversations happening. This is one place we can improve our public policy to make a difference for Vermonters. I just want to remind you of, given what Tom said, and I just want to thank, she's over here now, thank him for his incredible history and partnership. VSAC is a big partner of the Fleur Foundation and the Vermont Community Foundation. But we believe deeply in the messaging effects of it's available to everyone. So when you put a number on $100,000 household income, it creates barrier, either told or untold, and it really it lessens the availability for people to say, yes, that's for me. I can see myself going. As Scott Giles said, people need to see, they need to know the careers that are available to them, and they need to hear about those careers, and they need to be able to see where their pathway is to get to them. So if they can see it, then they can be it. And it's something that I quote Scott a lot. And I appreciate his clarity on that. So we appreciate your willingness to consider this change. We believe that the legislature is the proper place for this conversation to be had, because ultimately, if you were sent here for your constituents, you should be making this decision. And we're talking about really relatively small dollars. It's state projections say that's about $250,000 next year that will be diverted from the affected beneficiaries. Vermont, just as a reminder, Vermont has the lowest post-secondary continuation rates in New England, and we just need to think about how to change that. And this is one piece of that puzzle.
So now,
That's helpful. That I was just trying to make the connection in my head there, and it makes more sense now. And okay, so the other piece, I don't have the language of the statute in front of me. I just have the memo from the treasurer's office last year, and the language that is being proposed by the foundation. And just to be clear, I do support what you're advocating for, but I also want to make sure I'm understanding that the change is also beyond just like the messaging aspect of it, because I'm seeing here it's an amount equal to 5% of the assets distributed equally among the entities. If the treasurer's memo is accurate, now assuming that it is, the language currently is to distribute up to 5% of forward moving average equally. So that would impact the funds that are going out, right?
Well, the percentage would remain the same.
Yeah.
It just would be divided, instead of by 3, it would be divided by 4. So it would be instead of VSAC, UVM, and the Vermont State Colleges, it would be VSAC, UVM, CCD, and the Vermont State Colleges. So it would still be the same amount of money coming out of the fund as the 5% distribution, but it would be a slightly different number to CCD and a slightly different number to VTSU.
Well, I'm referring to the up to 5. So in theory, the treasurer could say, I'm only going to distribute 4% or 3%, and then that would get distributed equally. Whereas the language being proposed is that the treasurer shall withdraw 5%, right?
No, I mean, and I apologize, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm sure you probably
Oh, no, I'm just,
more than I do on.
I promise, it's not a trick question. I'm just trying to understand language.
All I want to do is change the names of who is getting the distribution.
my
All
sense is that
else would stay the same.
nothing changes on
Yeah.
that score. Well, the only thing that changes is just for recipients of the grade. So, yeah, other question. So make the case for so we really want to understand this. So on one level, I'm sitting here thinking they're all going to Vermont students. So everything you're saying is also true of the other,
Yeah.
because they're all going to Vermont students. And CCG is part of the state college system. So in a way, you're saying another way to look at it is you're asking for half the money, let's say colleges, and policy decision for the committee. And your argument for that is that as compared to VSAC or UVM, what?
Well, when we look at the undergraduate students going to UVM and the independent colleges, it is far fewer than the Vermonters that are going to VTSU or CCD. And CCD serves an inordinate number of Vermonters, and I'm not gonna try to say where the money went, in past years, but if we're trying to make those barriers less for our access institutions, for people stepping into one class and saying, I can maybe see myself as college going. I think that's the real difference. And if we can lower the barriers to someone saying, okay, I'll try it. Particularly don't put, when there's fewer financial barriers in place, that's a real barrier. And so if there's more money in the pot for, CCD and BTSU, then there's more students that can say, sure, I'll try it. And
So your argument is that there's less money by percentage going to a larger number of students in this arena than the other two.
sorry, say that again.
Less money distributed over, or the same amount of money distributed over a lot more students.
Right.
Than there are with the other, that's the argument. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the other, just to go back to something that Tom said, maybe want you both to chime in on this, is that you alluded to, was that when this was put together, the other purpose was to bring those three in groups of people together kind of as equals, talking to each other and involved in making education more available, more waters. And does that construct on that level change by adding a board?
I don't know. I think, I guess I think the commission should hear from the Vermont State Colleges to find out how they decide how much of that they could allocate their third alt CCB if they wanted to. And I maybe looking at a cohort of students at the Castleton and the other campuses that are very high need. And they want to allocate some to those students. I don't know. One point to Senator Hashim's comment, I think, Senator, you found a weak spot in the drafting of the current language of the current statute, because in the next in two sentences later, it uses the up to 5%. But in the first time that appears, it says equal to 5%. And it's always been administered and followed as not more than or up to, and that would be a good thing to clean up at some point. That's certainly how everyone has taken it to mean, is not more than or up to.
Thank you. Thank you. Or if we can get them, get a little more. Try to get the state colleges in.
Well, I think Tom brings up a really good point. If there is someone of high need, obviously there's people of high need in the state college system, across the system. That's why I feel like there should be more money dedicated in non-loan student aid dedicated to the places that those low income, high volume of students go.
True. But there are students at UVM that fit that profile as well. And from the VSAC perspective, the VSAC grant money is generally what we call portable. So we fund a lot of students in Windham County, for example, who go to Keene State for their education, and they can take the VSAC grant there and supplement it with whatever they get from Keene State and other need-based sources. And so the VSAC mission has always been to give the choice, much choice and support to students to choose where they want to go. And this has been a theme that goes all the way back to the Hoff administration to have at least part of the state higher education budget be directed to students and empower them to make those kind of choices.
Okay, I think we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So appreciate
Mr. Chair, do you know when you might be hearing from the other witnesses yet?
I think we had a delay in getting them.
Yeah. They were
Tomorrow.
We could, I hope. Tomorrow, I said not this.
I can check.
Yeah, she's checking. We're, yeah, trying to get it. Because
We'll keep an eye on the
Yeah,
calendar.
yeah.
Thanks.
it was hopefully we can get something out. Wow.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Every day.
So, okay, shifting here. Back to 931, which is the miscellaneous changes in education law. I was, so if you recall, one of the pieces that, and this is why Tim Mulligan has been waiting there. One of the pieces in the bill relates to the time that the start clock starts ticking on minimum class sizes. Do you remember that? Oh, I'm looking at the committee members. Do you remember that discussion that we had? Because what happened is, remember that the state board contacted us. Remember when they gave testimony here, they said it's not really clear when the clock starts ticking on the 3-year rolling average for minimum class sizes. And they said we need a clear date or a clear time. We need clarification. And what the House did was effectively say that either when all the contingencies are met for the foundation formula or July 1 of this coming year, whichever comes first, because I think, let's just say effectively July 1 of 27. That's when the clock would start ticking for figuring out the first time that you would look back and say you didn't meet minimum class size.
Okay.
Therefore would be July 1 of 30, because that would be the first time you had 3 years of data.
What I'm trying to remember post conference committee is the last thing I remember is it was still a pretty soft minimum where
That's all still there.
that's all still
This is
there.
all just when the clock starts ticking or
Okay.
whatever it is that it does.
Hmm?
Yes.
So we have data now. Why is this so?
It was,
Yeah.
I think it was, we have data, but we don't have a starting point.
Right.
I get,
Um,
so why can't we use the last 3 years of data? Or why does that be the future 3 years of data? Is there going to be a mad scramble and all of a sudden classes are shuffled?
I don't know.
Okay,
But
Could-
all I know is that the state board said,
Right.
give us clarity because
yeah, I get that.
it's not
I
clear right
agree.
now.
I'm just kind of like getting people agitated to,
Yeah.
support like one perspective versus
Right.
another.
So I was only explaining
Right.
kind of what they asked and what the House did.
Right.
So what the House did was choose effectively, let's just say July 1 of 27. And then the start clocks. Part of it is also to give a little, people are going through a lot of change with everything we're doing.
Right.
It's also not to put immediate pressure on that. I think
Yeah.
that's part of it. And that's actually, and so I have a little bit of testimony today and tomorrow, because in a conversation with somebody from the Low Schools Community Alliance, frankly, it came up that, well, I don't want to steal your testimony, Tim, but there's a lot of, among other things, a lot of angst around this
Sure.
whole thing. And so the question I think for the committee is, and I don't know what it is, but when do we actually think the clock should start ticking?
Right.
And so there's the looking backwards, there's what the House did or what we want to do. And so I just wanted to get some testimony.
Can I just add another wrinkle, which is we're talking about the 3-year rolling average for student count and how that might affect, in some ways, I'm not sure like whether they're small by necessity or not, which does affect their funding. And I say that because the 3-year rolling average has been a problem in the CTE world, because they are kind of paid based on that. So if they get an influx of students, it doesn't allow them to lower the cost for their district, right? So if Addison could work something out to get more students from Rutland, they still can't
lower the property tax rate for Addison residents because of the 3-year average.
Yeah, okay. We've been.
I'm just saying,
Thank-
like, there's a lot that this 3-year average can decide beyond, like, oh, we just think you're small or not.
And I think maybe Senator Meeks the answer, looking back and thinking about last year, might have just been a hard time to adjust if you know the need to adjust this company. That might have been part of the reason for not having the back. So I can't remember. But anyway, just wanted to give the floor to, and so Kim, introduce yourself for the record, and who you are and why you're here.
Yeah, so thank you so much for hearing me today. I appreciate it. And so I'm Tim Mulligan. I'm the principal of the Newark Street School. We are a small K-8 school. I'm going to clarify that. I've been saying K-8 for the 8 years that I've been up here, and we are our 1st through 8th school this year. So I'll get to talking a little bit about that and where we landed there in the Northeast Kingdom. So we're part of Kingdom East School District. We've got 7 schools across a pretty big geographic area. And we have some pretty unique things going on here. I know that our superintendent, Sean McMahon, has done some testimony with you and other committees. And so probably somewhat familiar with Kingdom East and some of the challenges that we face within our district and the things we've been doing and are hoping to continue to do as we progress forward. So I've been at Newark since July of 2017. And I am with you today to formally request a delay in the implementation of the Act 73 class size policy. So I would like to see more time. And while we understand the legislative intent behind these standards, the current timeline threatens to undermine the success that a small rural community has worked tirelessly to achieve. Point. Our school has been a model. We want to be a model for how we educate sustainably, and even being small and rural, we have done that, and we've evolved over time, and we are going to continue to evolve. So the Newark Street School serves as a powerful example of how a community can successfully navigate the complexities of a modern education. While our school was identified by the state a decade ago as an institution in need of improvement, we have spent the last several years proving that excellence is achievable through focused growth and adaptability. For the past 3 consecutive years, we have demonstrated significant academic progress, with students consistently scoring above state averages and maintaining high performance and high growth in reading and math district assessments. We recognize that there is no single right way to deliver high quality education. I think that's very important. I am an open-minded person, and we are in our community. While we are proud of our success with just 53 students here now, ranging from 1st through 8th grade in multi-grade configurations, we also understand that creating schools with more students per grade level opens up new and exciting opportunities for students, teachers, and school communities. We are not opposed to change, and recognize that with changes and growth and progress, we can produce even greater outcomes for our students. So that said, it is difficult for our community to reconcile a rushed reconfiguration when our school is currently thriving and physically sound. Following the Act 46 merger, we purposefully utilized capital funds to renovate our facility, ensuring that we have a high-quality, operationally efficient environment that can serve as a stable foundation for whatever future configurations best serve the district. So the Newark Street School is pretty unique that it is a small school here up in the Northeast Kingdom that actually, from a facility standpoint, doesn't have issues. We are an efficient building with upgrades to all of our mechanical systems, and we operate a pretty physically sound place. We have a track record of fiscal and operational responsibility. The Newark community and Greater Kingdom East School District community has a long history of fiscal responsibility. We are not a community that avoids difficult decisions. Rather, we lean into them when they serve long-term interests of our students. We recognize that Newark currently has very few young families. That is an undeniable fact. I have shared this at our town meeting. Our community knows this. We see that there is change coming. We don't have a kindergarten this year because we had no incoming kindergarten students. Are likely going to be closing also our K and our first grade next year because we only have 2 incoming kindergarten students. So we realized, and with that came a reduction in staff too. So we're operation again fiscally responsible with the decisions that we have moving forward. So yeah, we have already taken proactive, responsible steps to optimize our resources. Last year, the district chose not to open up a kindergarten, like I said. Next year, we're not going to have the K-1, and those students will attend another Kingdom East School District school of choice. These decisions are made with social, economic, and environmental sustainability in mind, as these responsibilities are embedded into our core values. We are already doing the work that Act 73 seeks to encourage, but we are doing it through a lens of local expertise and community care. Last night, I didn't include this in my letter here, that in my written testimony, but last night we hosted a community forum, an engagement night at the Newark Street School that combined also the Sutton school community, which is adjacent to ours and also a part of the Kingdom East community, because we are considering a reconfiguration of students across our 2 communities for next year, in which we would have a K-5 at Sutton and a 6 through 8 at Newark to help maximize the use of our resources. So we've been engaging our community in this work over the past few weeks. We've been doing a lot of work with our district admin team over the course of, I would say, not just this year, but over the past several years, because we are continuing to think about how we can really, I kind of want to take class size all out of this. It's impactful in our decisions and what we're doing. And the decisions, and this is what we're sharing with our community, these decisions are rooted in what is best for our students, right? We want to produce the greatest outcomes that we can for all of our kids. And that's why when I go through the decisions that we're making somewhere earlier, I had mentioned that I am not opposed to like reconfiguring and changing and progressing forward and doing some different things across our schools to produce greater outcomes for our students. So we recognize the work that needs to be done, but time is super important. So effective, lasting change can't be rushed. When a policy as significant as Act 73 is pressured by an aggressive timeline, especially when it's around class size minimums in small communities with declining enrollment. And we're thinking about all of the facility needs that we have in our buildings and what that means to move students. When we start checking the boxes of time and trying to act swiftly, and then decisions can become hasty, right? And hasty decisions can lead to unforeseen consequences that can dismantle the progress that we've been making in our school and in our district. So I'm advocating for time, specifically for local collaboration, allowing the town, district, and local stakeholders to collaborate on a vision that fits our unique geography, which we are already engaged in doing here in Kingdom East and in Newark and Sutton. Also, impact analysis, fully exploring the options for reconfiguration and understanding the long-term effects on student well-being. And then resource alignment. State-level resources, particularly construction aid, have to be fully considered in this. If legislation proposes that student populations are being relocated or schools reconfigured, the financial infrastructure must be in place to support those transitions safely and equitably. So, some of the things that are coming up in our town meetings that we've been having are about like, hey, we could just have Newark students be absorbed by the Sutton School. Well, the Sutton School facility has a lot of challenges to it. And the Newark Street School facility is the greatest facility that we have in terms of what the building looked like in terms of upgrades and the guts of the building itself. And so, those are challenges, right? As we're moving forward, we really want to think through them so that we're not making a bunch of decisions and moving students around all over the place over the course of years, and that they have long-term impact and success, right? So the Newark Street School is a success story. We are a high-performing, fiscally responsible, and renovated facility that serves as the heart of our rural community. And we ask that you grant us the time necessary to continue our transition thoughtfully, rather than forcing a timeline that risks the quality of education that our students have earned. And I appreciate the time that you guys are giving me today, and I'm certainly open to any questions that you might have of me.
Questions?
I was just checking where you are on the map. You are in the middle of nowhere. So is there an option, if you do get smaller, to go to a different school? Yours is in the best shape, correct?
Yeah.
But they couldn't take, could you take more students?
So we actually, coming out of COVID, so we operate with school choice across our district. And right now, about 50%, slightly more than 50% of our students are actually school choice students from other towns within our district. And we also have several students from NEK Choice. There are a lot of East Haven students that attend the Newark Street School as well. So we are serving their population as well. So, can we be absorbed other places? It would be a challenge without configuring other facilities to absorb another 50 students, right? Like, so Sutton couldn't do that. Burke couldn't do that. Those are the two closest schools to us. Linden might, but we're growing to a pretty significant geographic area. I also drive the bus for my school. And right now I'm the only bus driver, and my bus route takes more than an hour to do. And that's just through Newark, right? We're talking about 15 to 20 minutes between stops at times to pick up kids. And so now if we're also transporting students another 20 to 30 minutes away, that's certainly a challenge. So
that led to the next question: is the ones that are using school choice to come to you, the parents usually drop them off?
Yep, they would be driving, yeah.
Okay. And roughly how many do that?
We have 53 students in the school right now, and like I said, about 50% of them are school choice.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
7 weeks.
Yeah, thanks, sir. So the question which I'm hearing is about the question of implementation within 3 years of data. And what I'm advocating is that we know what the data is now. I think it would be beneficial that whatever school every school that we're talking about in the state, that we use the data we already have to indicate where the effects are on schools. That would be good to know, and then advertise and make sure that it's accurate information. And I think that the Newark Street School is a classic example of small by necessity. I'm not sure we ever really landed on what small by necessity really is. It's a whole nother question, which I think we need to grapple with. But in any case, I'm not advocating, because this is about implementation. I'm not advocating that we accelerate implementation. I'm advocating that we get the word out where, once we settle on language, on class sizes, and what is small by necessity, that we advertise who's affected. So those conversations get really stimulated when we land in revised districts on what's happening next.
And I think Senator Weeks' point, if I'm remembering correctly, I think the next step for finding that is in the State Board of Education's
Small
responsibilities. Yeah, that the guidelines that were developed were kind of previously established as a starting point at the State Board. It's in their it falls in their court finding it.
I've lost track.
Yeah, be honest with you. Yeah.
Tuition per student, roughly? Do you have that?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Tuition per student. Do you roughly have
Tuition
that?
per student, I don't have that on me and that's going to be wrapped up into our district numbers. So if you looked at Kingdom East School District's tuition by, and I don't know that off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Yep. We wouldn't have that look just for the Newark Street School though. It's a district number.
Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you for your patience. We got a little late off the floor, and then the other discussion went on for a while. That happens.
No worries. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, happily hear from you. Thanks. So we have, oh, I see. We have, Marianne Morris. And this is now shifting gears again. And these are the prevention lead organizations. This, I don't know if you've seen a lot of people in the state today, have been from, people from prevention lead organizations. And Marianne has wanted to come in. I know you were in House Ed, right? House Ed. And just to talk to us a little bit about what that actually means. And also, what your budgetary issues or needs could be.
Yeah, just talking a little bit about that.
So introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah, and I was in House and Human Services. So I'm Marianne Morris. I'm an executive director of the Collaborative, which is a small substance misuse prevention organization in Londonderry, Vermont. But we're also the prevention lead for Region 4 of the Vermont Prevention Lead organizational model. I'm also a certified prevention specialist and a member of the Substance Misuse Prevention Council. And I appreciate taking the time to switch over and think a little bit about substance misuse as it relates to schools for this time. And try to give you the nod to switch gears when you can there. In the last presentation, we had some members from Department of Substance Use, and one of the things I kind of want to start with this that they noted, and I love this statistic, is that every dollar spent on prevention is $18 spent in other spaces, public safety, workforce issues, health. So think about that in the context of how we spend money. So what's great about the Vermont Prevention Lead thinking, what's great about the Vermont Prevention Lead structure, there's 4 regions in Vermont. It's funded through allocations from the cannabis excise taxes. So I appreciate that from you all, is that it's keeping the money for substance misuse prevention right where it's needed. The people who know the area, know the needs, know the people who have those needs in the communities. And the prevention work doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's support from Vermont Department of Health, Division of Substance Use, and the networks that are also involved in substance misuse on the ground. So you can see Vermont Prevention Lead Region 4. I wanted to make sure that you guys had a look at the whole map so you can see your region. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm in Region 4. It is divided by health districts. So I have Brattleboro, Bennington, Springfield Health District, and White River Junction Health District. My organization is right down in the crook of the arm there in the mountains of southern Vermont. But we've been having ties to those areas doing prevention work in those health districts for at least 10 years or so. And we were a part of the planning team for how the Vermont Prevention Lead rolled out for the state. So the timeline shows that there was considerable thought put into the planning for how the Vermont Prevention Leads would roll out. There was first a 2-year round of funding where we had some funded partners do our own work.
Marianne, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
can you tell us what the prevention lead does?
Yeah, so it provides substance misuse prevention work in all of the communities. We work across the lifespan. We work to fill gap areas where prevention might not exist already. And we are to enhance the protective factors and reduce the risk factors for substance use prevention in the first place. Makes sense. We had 2 rounds of funding. Right now we're in year 1 of a 3-year round of funding and have many partners in that. And mostly why I'm here today is because we're preparing now to roll out to also be the agency that will manage the grants to schools that are specific for substance misuse prevention. And those are the funds that are used in your schools to perhaps hire some staff for it to be a student assistant provider personnel, or to have other activities related to substance misuse in your schools. So the funding keeps prevention on the ground, as I was saying. It can tell you that we get used to really having inconsistencies of funding in substance misuse before the BPLOs roll out. You had to find the grant, get the grant, be assigned a strategy that might not work for your community. This way that this funding rolls out is that we're able to say, here's what our community needs. We've identified these needs with our partners, and here's how we'd like to use that funds and fund these projects. So you'll see as we talk more about how that comes out. The BPLO system has strengthened the organizations who are already doing prevention, already partnering with schools on prevention. It strengthened them so that they could do the work in front of them instead of having to hunt down the money. Structure for how the regions are rolled out is a little bit different for each of the regions, but I'll tell you about ours. I think we're all pretty much on the same plate. We have the same tasks, we have the same connection to our community. The PL4 lead and the collaborative itself form the planter or the structure that holds the things together and gives the system a shape. And it provides the stability and the support. I think that afternoon sun, it's off over that. It's so hot. It's great, but it's so hot, right?
Yeah.
It provides the stability and support that allow interconnected prevention efforts to take root and grow across southern Vermont. And the supports include strategies to fill the gap areas. Just like you're thinking about the gap areas right now after this presentation. Provide opportunities, communication, and training supports. And this design highlights the connected layers, the partners, the networks, and the PL4 leads that it takes to carry out the work and so that the communities can thrive. We have a regional advisory committee that helps us to make funding decisions and to provide feedback on strategy and things like that. These are made up of C-suite hospital representatives, officers of the Department of Local Health, district directors, regional planning commissions. Some high level thinking that will include the schools as we begin to embrace more of this school work. Unique to our specific district is that we have 8 really well established prevention coalitions in our region. So we really tapped into using them to help us form our strategy and the way that we walk the work forward into the community. Go ahead. So we've gathered together funded and unfunded and untapped partners from across our committee, used the regional advisory and the prevention coordination team to make a strategic plan. And we wanted to think innovatively about how we were approaching prevention. And we came up with these 5 goals for our area: foster belonging, well-being, combat loneliness, and cultivate connection, increase awareness of prevention and community health, connect people to care, and utilize collective impact for community transformation. And by achieving those goals, the idea is that we're going to have the overarching goal of reducing substance misuse addressed. So, and it takes a combination of these actions, I'm in my wrong hand, Sam, sorry. It's a combination of actions sustained over time to really have an effective prevention project. And we're so grateful that the BPO allows us to offer multi-year grants to our community partners and for projects that are trying to just begin to be shaped.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the last slide? Do you have metrics of success that you're using? I mean, I'm really concerned about loneliness and isolation, and I wonder if you're really, trying to get to the science of.
We are, and I mean, I can fast forward, or if you take a pause,
Sure.
I have a couple of slides at the end, and if you have more, like back and forth, that would be great. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is our epidemiologist.
Yay.
Can you go to the remote slide, Sam? Oh no, that one first, yeah. So you see here a breakdown of how we funded in our community across the different health districts. Some of the work is done regionally, so it's just kind of for everyone. And then we ask our partners to pick 2 to 3 of our goals, what they're going to work towards. And you can see that we have a good take of like what people are working towards as their goals across the spectrum of the 5 goals for us. And incidentally, I also kind of did a little quick game for myself and looked at our funded partners, and 19 projects directly collaborate with schools already. So it might be for after school activities or embedded activities within the schools. Go ahead, Sam. So it's easy to get substance misuse prevention wrong with the best intentions, and we use some tools to make sure that we're being evidence-based. And one of them is the Vermont prevention model. The idea is that individual work, mentoring within a school, that the social work, peer leadership opportunities, that organizational work across the entire school with staff trainings and things like that. And then the community work when you bring people into the school area to do presentations, and then some policy work. And of course, you're increasing your impact as you go up through the model but each level is important. So a real substance misuse prevention, a really good one is going to have representation across all of these levels. And so these are currently where our partners are working across the Vermont prevention model. As we provide technical assistance to these partners within our system, they're deepening their work and advancing their work. So we're seeing these numbers grow throughout the model over time too. Thanks, Sam. As our, we have a focus on evaluation. So we not only ask our funded partners to evaluate, but we do it ourselves. And so one of the things that we ask of them is around evaluation. How are we doing providing technical assistance to you and doing your evaluation projects? So far, the results are good. 82% of funded partners report that they have an increased understanding of program evaluation and how to embed it into their work. So we're not only doing it ourselves, but we're asking it of our funded partners. So this slide, as I indicated with the timeline, the school-based thing is new, but not so new. We've all been doing work with our schools around substance misuse for a while, but holding the grants is a little bit newer. And the Vermont Department of Health has done a great job reaching out with funding to these schools already and evaluating their work. And this last year, they've increased funding to school-based prevention programs. That's the map that you see here, by 52%. So there was 19 in FY25, and now there are 29 funded districts in FY26 from direct state grants. But you see that there's still gap areas. You know, a bit of is that Vermont as the state is covered with school-based prevention services, as well as those community-based ties that come along too. So recently the VPLOs were tasked to reach out to the remaining unfunded districts, and we're starting to create those relationships now. Base grant funding also in the last year increased from 60,000 to 80,000. So if you had a grant, now there's a little bit more money in it. We've also shifted to allow for community organizations to apply for this funding, realizing that you guys are under a lot of stress with education. The schools are under a lot of stress. They might not have the capacity to apply or manage a grant. So partnering with a community-based organization that does the work for the school during the school day of the prevention grant has been a tool that 3 organizations have taken that opportunity to use. So again, this program's consistently evaluated, and I don't know those reasons right here myself, but I have some course. Go ahead, Sam. So these funded grants support a few different things, and this is just a sample of them. And sometimes this happens through a student assistance professional, or sometimes not. But screening is a primary focus. And what this does is it catches some of the challenges that our young people face with mental health, perhaps substance use or other issues before they impact their educational outcomes. They also work on capacity so that schools can really be integrated into the community and build a stronger infrastructure of support for substance misuse prevention. And the community resources can then be tailored towards that school's needs. Staff training, a successful program also relies upon a whole school to be involved. And so ensuring that all school staff are trained in order to help students make healthier choices is another one of the initiatives. And student empowerment. Many of these grants are about developing students' assets, increasing those protective factors, and giving our young people a voice. So those things happen there too. And also some policy, taking a look and making sure that substance misuse policy is happening in a way that is supportive of our young people and families is also another initiative. So that's what's happening with the schools right now. I'll give you a brief look at what some of the funded things are happening outside of the schools that might have a tie to it, if you will indulge me. This is how they're connecting to the goals that we've established already. So across all of our health districts at PL4, some of this youth work is happening. So you saw that there's a little bit going on. Youth work and connection to schools is happening throughout. And if you can get me to the Chester slide, Sam, that would be great. So Chester schools, it's interesting, a few years back, Ludlow had to close their school and there was a bunch of students who had to move over into Chester. And it was just a bit of a changing time. There wasn't a lot of things for those students to do after school. They didn't know how to participate in the activities in Chester. And so it was a gap area and there was a need that needed to happen for some after school support. So this group spoke to the young people. They said they wanted a teen center. 2 years ago, the Chester Teen Center didn't exist with the help of the BPLO funds. Now they have about 30 people in the day. They do ski adventures, bike adventures, they painted a mural. Chester has all kinds of lovely little festivals. They're asked at all the little festival times to come out and run a booth and be just a part of that community, which is an important piece of a protective factor for them. And it's really an important quote for me is that when I turned 21, I want to come back and work here because that's how I got to where I am right now. I went to summer camp. I was so attached. I continued my work with youth all the way up to the position that I'm in now. Just shows that, we're building the leaders right now. And then in Brattleboro district, youth work is different. It is embedded into the school. And these are kids that might not be getting as much attention or have a voice in other aspects of their world, but they have a voice in these clubs in the school. They've came from them to build a garden and to have a hygiene closet. Nobody's making them do it. And so empowering the youth at the source and connecting them to the resources that they need to thrive is an important piece of that funded partner work. And down in Bennington district, you have a team like the Choice Team who wants to improve the school climate and the community climate, increase healthy behaviors. And they presented to the town select board, started a youth council, the third in the state. And one of the things that they do for all of the schools in Bennington is that they make some calm down packets for the school classrooms, but also for the public spaces, so that when young people need to have a little more focus in their moment, they have something available to them right there to help them keep calm and focused. Brattleboro youth are the leaders in the school and community, leading meetings and analyzing data and using voices to work towards better, safer, and more connected community. They were the first Vermont Youth Council, and they're the leaders that Vermont needs right now too. And then in the Bennington and the Springfield districts, Resiliency Through Understanding makes an impact with out of school time education and skill building around resiliency for young people and their caring adults. They're required to attend 5 events. If they do that successfully, they get an incentive of a season pass to one of the mountains down in the southern region, Stratton, Magic Mountain, or a boarding center, or the Dorset Playhouse. We require that the caring adults come to 2 events so that we're taking that piece up a notch. The second slide for that will show that this has a really wide intergenerational impact. Start with wrapping young people and families, the volunteers, the schools, the business partners that provide the incentives, and the whole community towards a common goal of helping to build resiliency and reduce the collective impact. And so we do rely upon evaluation. We use results-based accountability, which is a simple process of asking people, how much did you do? How many events, trainings did you host? How many pieces of paper did you make? How well did you do it? How many people came back to your event? And is anyone better off? And we work with them, with our funded partners, to provide technical assistance. And each of these little grids are based on our goals of the belonging. We want to get cut past the jargon, so we support them through this process and create some commonalities so that we can really gauge some success. And so in the end, right now, we are 8 months into the project. We use Clear Impact as our data dashboard. 8 months into the project and the grant cycle, we really just have the help kind of things right now. We'll have some of that. Is anyone better off as the year progresses in the next quarter or so? You'll see those results that I can share with you. But they're coming in. We're learning how to do it. There's lots of things happening out there, as you can see, 1,000 and some odd. So the things are happening, and we'll wait to see if anyone's better off. Results come in. Go ahead, Sam. So as a lead, and you've seen this already, but it draws the attention to when we're funneling these funds, the Vermont Prevention League funds, down to a regional level, who's creating the timely support for the people who are walking the work forward into the world. that it's just a really holistic regional portfolio for us to have to create those connections with schools and community and projects like this. Using local data and community assessments, and then that helps to guide our strategies that are specific for our communities. That helps to build a more interconnected and equitable prevention network. And then finally, I'm not doing this work alone, obviously. Thankfully, Sam is here, and Thomas and James are on our team at the collaborative, as well as all of our partners within the networks. And we have a lot of ideas and energies and hope for this project. The economic and social benefits of investing in this VPLO and prevention are clear. Preventing substance misuse before it starts saves lives and decreases costs. And by sustaining and expanding prevention programs through the VPLO project, we can ensure a healthier and a more vibrant Vermont. So thank you for that. Do you have questions? Anyone? Yeah.
Is your work in region or region 4 typical and region 2 were here? Would they be saying same thing, or they do it a little bit differently?
I'm gonna say yes and no. So they're really thinking about what their needs are. I started out the presentation saying that we were rich in the assets of having coalitions who are experiencing substance misuse prevention in our area. So we leveraged that. Another region does not have it any, or maybe has one. And what they need to do is really begin to build that capacity so that the work can be taken up throughout that region. So we're each treating our region with the same overarching goals: increasing protective factors, decreasing risk factors, and result of reduction of substance misuse. But we're really assessing our communities and creating strategy that can leverage what the assets are in that community and begin to build the infrastructure. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Okay, so tell us, remind us about the grant. You got a grant and the grant lasts for 3 years?
Yeah, so we get funding directly from Vermont Department of Health, who gets that funding through the cannabis excise tax substance misuse allocation. And I know that has a different title, and I've asked Tracy to fill that in for me.
Yes, Substance Misuse Prevention Fund, PF. Started last year. This is the first year for it.
And so, and then we release an RFA or figure out a way to subgrant that money out in our.
So that's an ongoing funding stream, or just for 3 years, or does that?
Each region determines that on their own, and so we had determined that sustainability over time is important to us.
You're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have rolled out 3 years. We have smaller bits of funding that are available in a more timely way to increase partnerships and support promising practices.
Well, this was sort of one of our, we have a whole group here in the State House, and they're making stops, and you wanted to have them in.
And I want to, just to be sure to touch base to so that you guys in education know that we're supporting schools in as best as we can through direct funding, and we'll be continuing to create those relationships. I think it's a positive thing to bring the school base down to a regional level. We already have some relationships with schools because of the other work that happens tangentially to school day. And I think that by also managing grants, that we'll be able to embed that work more consistently into our school partners. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Nice drive. Yeah, why don't we take 5 minutes? Let me take a 5-minute break. Be back for our last segment.